All right, so thank you all for coming. Welcome. My name is Ronnie Jones, and I am with WestEd, and I'm very excited to have you here today. We have obviously a panel session today, so this is high leverage practices within a multi-tiered system of support. And our lead presenter is Sue Curry, who's going to be with you today she's an associate professor at San Francisco State University, and she's a member of the CEDAR team, and she'll be explaining what that project is. So thank you very much, and welcome to our panel.
Good morning. Thank you for coming. First, let me describe what CEDAR is. Has anyone heard of CEDAR? CEDAR is a technical assistance center out of the University of Florida, and it is run by Mary Brownell and Paul Sendelar. And this is a nationally funded, through the Department of Education, the Office of Special Ed Programs Center. So they have this grant that's about $5 million a year for 5 years. The first year was 2012, where they set up how they would work with states providing technical assistance. In 2013, they put out a call to work with states. And each state had to come up with a team, and the team had to include at least 5 institutions of higher education, the Department of Ed, and in our case, it also included CTC. So Joan Bissell from the Chancellor's office was great in helping us come together and write the application, because it took a lot of coordination, as you can imagine. We got together. Now we know each other really well. When we put this application in, we didn't know each other at all. We all have slightly different teacher and leader preparation programs, so this was a huge undertaking. In retrospect, or hindsight, it has worked so beautifully, because as Linda Darling-Hammond mentioned, you learn so much more when you're with colleagues who are all doing things differently, sometimes better, sometimes we do something maybe not better, different, more effective. So it's been a really nice couple of years that we've worked together. So that's what CEDAR is. That's who we are. They are currently working with 15 states and will work with 5 more, just to let everyone know. That would be great. Thank you. So the name of our talk are high leverage practices. So high leverage practices are a lot of the things that Linda Darling-Hammond was talking about this morning, and we were thrilled to hear that. Out of the University of Michigan, they, through their research examining evidence-based practices, they identified practices that are effective in almost all teaching situations. Then the University of Hawaii looked at those high leverage practices and chose about 20 that were especially effective for special education teachers. And so what I provided on the handout, which will also be on the website, is a list of exactly what they are, because we're going to tell you about how we use them in our programs, so we'll talk more specifically about them. But what they are a set of practices that are fundamental to support student learning and that can be taught, learned, and implemented by those entering the profession. So they're clearly identified. Teachers should practice them in their teacher preparation program, in their field experiences, and through their induction years. So let me give you an example of what some of them are. There are 4 general areas that they fall into. They are collaboration. For example, collaborating with parents and families so that students get the proper support and services that they need. In the area of assessment, learning how to use formative assessment, progress monitoring, not just using it, but using it to inform instruction and levels of progression through the curriculum. Social and behavioral. For example, actually teaching appropriate behaviors and rewarding. And then instruction. That's the area where there are the most practices. But for example, flexible grouping, using peer-assisted learning strategies across grades and curriculum, but implementing the peer-assisted learning strategies with Fidelity. It's not just pairing up students and hoping they benefit from each other. And we'll get a little more in-depth as we go through them. I also gave you the link on the handout to the CEDAR website where you can get much more information about all of these practices. So we are going to start San Francisco. Wait, let me introduce my colleagues. I'm sorry. Okay. So as I said, I'm Sue Corey. This is Ellen Cook. We are colleagues at San Francisco State. She's going to finish her dissertation this year. And then we have Vicki Graff. She's from Loyola Marymount. We have Shireen Pavri from Long Beach. We have Layla Ricci and Andrea Zeitlin from UCLA, CSU, LA. And then we have Lynn Larson from Brandman University. And last but not least, Colleen Torgerson from Fresno. So we are going to start. I didn't want to do this because I didn't want to bore you going on and on, but I am going to start with my institution. So we use the technical assistance, and what we did at our place, we started with our induction program because I think it's fairly clear that really good comprehensive induction keeps teachers in the field. And a lot of induction programs are kind of willy-nilly. We wanted an induction program that was truly individualized induction for our special ed teachers, that they can improve their practice by examining what they do well and what areas they need help. So they start off that program with a very in-depth self-examination, going through all the standards. And how do they know they are good at something? What's the evidence? And then where do they need help? So I'm going to turn this over to Ellen now, and she'll tell you exactly how we do what we do.
So our induction program is a hybrid model, which has really been exciting for us at San Francisco State because the School of Education has been kind of reticent about putting things online. So we start with an introduction with our students because we are trying to build a community of learners. And it's really important for special educators to have that because often they are the only special educator in their school. Sometimes even we have teeny tiny districts, even in their district. So they start and they introduce themselves and they give their colleagues a sense of the context in which they teach, which again varies because of the nature of special ed. They do a self-assessment and it's a pretty in-depth self-assessment. We help them with that process. Some people, it just depends on where they are in their comfort level in teaching and about being honest about what they really don't know. But given given their desire to improve their practice and sometimes out of desperation, they really are willing to look at their practice. Then they make an individualized induction program. So they look at the big picture. If I'm interested in assessment, there are these teaching performance expectations that I have and my district has for me. How am I going to, where am I in that process? And from that, they'll do a content module. We, again, because we can go online, we have access to wonderful resources like IRIS and the National Association of Teachers of Special Ed to get them kind of pulled into information about the background of what they want to learn. Because sometimes, as we all know, it's a very compressed process that the teacher preparation programs look like now in the state of California and elsewhere in the United States, that they may have had, while we want our learners in the classroom to have in-depth knowledge, many times our teachers, it's kind of spray and pray about different aspects. And again, in special ed, because we're preparing people to work from K to 12, it's a challenge. And the teachers who really want to do a good job feel that as well. So they go through a content module. Then we ask them to go and do some research. Just a little bit of research and to find out where these these nuggets of wisdom come from, because we want to demystify for our teachers how new knowledge is created as educators as well, because we're going to invite them to join that process of research even within their own classrooms. And I'll get into that in just a minute. So they read a research article, they report back to their peers, we talk about what we're looking for when we read research, and then they come up with a very specific part of whatever that big program is, whether it's classroom management or assessment or technology, and they make up their own personal improvement plan, of course with interaction from Sue and myself. They implement it. We come up with a program. We really try to have them not everything be their responsibility, so that they're looking in their schools for assistance and to collaborate with colleagues. They collect data, and then they evaluate and they reflect. Fortunately, with this new program, they have 2 semesters with us. And we're looking forward to seeing, this is a brand new program. We just started it in the fall of 2015. We're collecting research. It's like writers have, every incident in your life is an opportunity to write a book. And, as teacher educators, we feel every class is an opportunity to collect research. We're collecting research on what pieces are effective. And we're also going to reach out to our district and find out what they would like us to do, because we feel like this model can really have legs and can really help teachers see if all their districts can offer are those 1 or 2 day workshops, that they can have an afterlife in an induction model and in an ongoing professional development model like this. So we are very proud of our work here, and I will turn it over to whoever's next.
Thank you so much, and good morning, everyone. I'd kind of like to know who's in the room. Do we have any school principals? Oh, we have 1 principal. We have some district administrators. All right. Do we have any teachers? Okay, a few. Who else? Who haven't I mentioned? Higher ed? Oh, we've got some higher ed. Some of our colleagues are here. That's great. Nice to see all of you. Well, we're at a little different end. We've got induction going on at San Francisco State. And being a private university, we have had the luxury of working with our undergraduates for a number of years. So what we're going to be talking about is really how we work with our future general educators and also our future special educators as well. So these are like sophomores, juniors, young people who are really just interested in getting into the field of teaching and wanting to explore. And of course, we want to indoctrinate them as early as we can. And so we've had the luxury of partnering with a very nationally recognized, fully included charter school, which is WISH, and we've got 2 of the teachers here who are going to really model what Linda Darling Hammond was talking about in terms of collaboration. And we've been very fortunate to be able to learn from the high leverage practices that WISH has been implementing actually over 6 years. But in their first few years were recognized by the Swift Center out of the University of Kansas as being a nationally recognized school for full inclusion, for inclusive practices. And so you're going to hear from Caitlin and also from Leslie, who are teachers and who really are modeling what we hope for our future educators, that we can actually implement these high leverage practices. And what we're really focusing on is collaboration, which in your handout is identified as one of the high leverage practices. And they're going to introduce exactly how that is implemented at the school level. That's why I wanted to know sort of who was in the room, because you might want to come and visit. They're very open to having guests come and visit their school. They're very close to Los Angeles International Airport. They're right within walking distance of our university. So it's very easy for our undergraduates to get over there and to actually get into the field.
Thank you for the introduction, Vicki. My name is Leslie, so I am a 3rd grade general education teacher at WISH. We have been teaching there for 5 years now. We currently co-teach together, and
I'm Caitlin Salone, and I'm the special education teacher, her counterpart. I co-teach in the 2nd and 3rd grade classrooms at WISH Charter, and we, like Leslie said, we've been co-teaching together for 5 years now. So it's really helped the collaboration piece, and we're going to go into a little more depth into what that looks like at our school. what practices we have and our collaboration with LMU.
Perfect. So our charter is founded on 6 tenets, and we are held accountable on a daily schedule that we follow and implement these tenets. And so we just wanted to quickly elaborate on each piece. So the first piece is co-teaching and collaboration. We are not a silo. We are not isolated. And we, just like what Linda said, we work better when we work with others. So Katie and I, on a daily, weekly basis, meet to co-teach and collaborate to form best practices for all of our students across a diverse crowd. We have students from moderate severe disabilities all the way to our GATE students in the classroom 100% of the time. And it wouldn't be possible without that tenet of true collaboration.
So the collaboration, it looks like us having team meetings every week. So we have a scheduled time within our weekday, within our week schedule, that we meet together as a team. We co-plan. I'm the special education teacher, but I plan writing for our team. And Leslie plans math, and each person on our team plans something different. And when we come to the table with our materials, we come with the modifications, the accommodations ready for all learners, the extensions as well. That being said, there's our differentiated instruction. So we really try to differentiate, and we try to make all of our content, all of our lectures, all of the instruction that we provide available and accessible to all students. We use multi-tiered systems of support, and in doing so, that kind of looks like, we have our, what we do for the whole class, and then we go to tier 2, where we have our more targeted interventions, and then we go to our tier 3 for our kiddos who need a little more intensive instruction in any different academic area or behavior. And that can look like us having something called a mirroring folder. And so we use mirroring folders where it's targeted in whatever needs the child has, and we do it at school, really quick assessment or really quick drills, and then we have the child do it at home with their parents.
Our third tenet is optimal class sizes. So the idea that we're really trying to give each child that individualized attention. We try to keep our ratio at 25:1. And again, the class sizes are trying to meet the same population as you would see in any given communities, right? So you'll have, your 2, 3, 4 students that may have an IEP or more specialized needs. You'll have that top 10% as well that receive GATE services in our class. But within any given class, we want to make sure we give all students the same opportunity, and that's given through optimal class sizes.
And then really quick, I know we're kind of running out of time, but we have parent partnerships, which are huge. And then our LMU affiliation, which is huge also. We get fieldwork students from the time Leslie right now has a student that has been working with her for 4 years since she was a freshman. And so that's just a huge support. We get student teachers. We have a collaboration with the engineering department, and they send us students who do projects to help make the environment more accessible to our kiddos with more physical needs. So that's really exciting. We hold each other accountable to those tenets. And
So a way we meet those accountability measures is we meet laterally across all classes, and so I might meet with a new teacher and go over the 6 tenant checklist to make sure that they are meeting the needs of our school. Katie did a good job of explaining our weekly co-planning and time to co-instruct in the classroom. Before we hand it over, did you want to talk briefly about the administrator meeting?
super fast. We have a monthly SPED meeting where we meet as a team and talk about what each person's doing so we can collaborate in that aspect too.
Okay, I'm going to have to interrupt because they could go on and on. But we're very fortunate to have our undergraduates be able to spend an extensive amount of time, and overall it's 100 hours that they have to get into this early field work, and you're going to see the commission really pushing for early field work and developmental field work. So we're very fortunate to have WISH, and we're going to be focusing the research projects also on high leverage practices, again within this MTS model. So I encourage you to come and visit WISH and see best practice. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Shireen Pavri from Cal State Long Beach. And I am going to talk to you a little bit about our initiative at Cal State Long Beach through the CEDAR project, which really aims to develop and prepare teachers, much like Caitlin and Leslie that you just met. We are also working with our undergraduate students, and I understand we're one of the first programs in the whole state of California that is preparing teachers to earn both their general ed and special ed credentials at the undergraduate level in a truly collaborative model that prepares them to work in multi-tiered systems of support. So we have called our program our urban dual credential program. We have our first cohort that started this year, and we're completely based in a clinical model. We offer our courses at a school site. We're currently working with Little Lake City School District. We're also working with Long Beach Unified School District. And so our candidates essentially are going to be well prepared to work with all learners, particularly targeting kids with disabilities and English language learners, again, with a focus on working in high-need urban schools. So it's a 2-year program. Candidates would come into the program currently at the undergraduate level, typically in finishing the program in 2 years. We are also opening up a post-baccalaureate pathway. So if they don't come in prepared with all of their courses, they can come in at the post-bac level as well. The program was designed, we've had a dream for a long time at Cal State Long Beach to do a collaborative program of this sort. And the CEDAR project was an excellent catalyst that got us moving with a lot of support from our dean. We had excellent collaboration from our general ed and special ed colleagues in designing this completely new program. I'll show you a little bit about what the program looks like in a moment. We started with a fresh slate. What were our goals? What would we want our candidates to be able to do once they graduate? And then built on the courses based on that premise. It's been a great learning experience for all of us faculty in the program. There's constant professional development. We would think that education is a cohesive whole, but there's so much distinction in our jargon, in our understanding of some key concepts. So we're constantly learning from each other and engaging in ongoing professional development. We also work really closely with our school district partners, and I'll tell you a little bit about our clinical practice model. So the high leverage practices that you heard about earlier today are implemented both in the coursework and the fieldwork simultaneously. And I think that's what's really key in our program. The teacher preparation is housed at a K-6 school currently in Little Lake. Students are engaging in fieldwork observations both at that school site and other fieldwork sites across the LA area, LA Orange County area. We have visited the Chime Inclusive School. We've gone to other inclusive schools to observe how inclusion can be done effectively. And then our students within the school site that they're embedded at, they are doing clinical rounds, and then they will be doing their student teaching in that site as well. The program is structured in a multi-tiered systems of support framework where candidates are first prepared to meet to meet the learning needs of all students at a tier 1 level. And then we're layering on our tier 2 and 3 instruction and supports. So here's a brief overview of what the program looks like. It's a pretty dense slide. I'm going to go down semester by semester. So in the first semester, the students take an introductory foundations course on inclusive education. They then learn about literacy strategies for all learners, reading and writing and spelling in tier 1. They take a behavior course that sets the foundation for positive behavior support and effective classroom behavior management. And they have a course on English language development. At this point in time, they are doing clinical rounds 2 days a week. They have been assigned to mentor teachers, and they're in their classrooms in the mornings, and then they take university courses at the same school site in the afternoon. Some of the assignments they do, which are performance-based, which ensure that they're actually working with students in K-12 schools. They do a behavior case study. They do a presentation with parents on multi-tiered systems of support. They do an RTI literacy lesson, and they do a language lesson. In the second semester of the program, they take a course on assessment of all learners, again with a focus on assessing kids with disabilities as well as English learners. They go on to take their literacy course for tier 2 and tier 3, so there's more intervention in there. They take a foundations course on working effectively with families and communities and English learners. and then they do their Tier 1 math methods course. At this point in time, again, they're doing clinical rounds. They're in the classroom 2 mornings a week, taking classes that in the afternoon. And some of the assignments they work on are, again, RTI literacy projects, again, with a focus on small group interventions, math lesson instruction, an assessment case study, a community funds of knowledge project, and they work on intervention plans. And of course, they have to do the CAL TPA, and so that's embedded in their second semester. The third semester, they start their student teaching. Now, our students are going to be earning both credentials. So some of them will be doing their general ed student, multiple subject student teaching first. Others will be doing their ed specialist student teaching first. Students can earn either their mild, moderate, or moderate severe credentials within the 2-year time frame. If they choose to earn the other authorization as well, all they will need to do after their 2 years is come back for 1 more semester of student teaching. The coursework will all be covered in the program. So in semester 3, they take their math tiers 2 and 3 course. They need to take coursework in art, health, and PE to meet those standards. And they will take a methods course in history and social science. They will, at this point, be student teaching 5 days a week, so their coursework is offered in the afternoon. And they have a whole student teaching competency checklist that they must demonstrate, in addition to doing an RTI project in math, history, art, PE, unit lessons, and they will do more interventions in math as well, along with the CAL TPA. Similarly, the 4th semester, they will continue with their student teaching, so they will do the student teaching in the other authorization area, either special or general ed, and take a science course as well as a moderate severe methods course and a transition services course. And then again, demonstrate science and moderate severe strategies in terms of their assignments. So just a recap of the clinical practice. Again, we know that most high leverage practices are only effective if there is both a theory and practice connection. And we heard again this morning about how important clinical practice is and a nice example of how it's being done at the Wish Charter School. The clinical practices in our program are with students being in the general education classroom, their first semester, doing clinical rounds, 4 hours per week with a mentor teacher. They teach 3 lessons in their first semester, whole class, whole group instruction, and they do observations of inclusive schools. In their second semester, the focus is really on Tier 2 and 3 intervention, and they're in the general ed classroom again at this point in time, but they're doing some work with special ed teachers as well. They're again in the mornings, 4 hours per week in the general ed classroom. They are providing small group interventions for 30 minutes 2 times each week. So they are part of the school's RTI model. And they will also be continuing to make observations in different settings. By the time they're in their 3rd and 4th semester, they're spending 4 half days and 1 full day in the general ed or special education setting doing their student teaching. So we're hoping to create more inclusive schools by preparing teachers in this inclusive collaborative format. Our Teachers Kit, they're going to start their own charter school, which is going to be completely inclusive. So maybe that's where we're headed. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Andrea Zetlin from Cal State Los Angeles, and this is my colleague, Layla Ritchie. So one of the things that you probably have picked up is that we all have very different agendas within our institutions. And that's one of the nice things about CETA is that they allowed us to figure out what do we need in our own institution to move the to move things along. And at Cal State LA, what we felt was we really needed to develop a collaborative culture between the general ed and the special ed faculty. It was very much a silo system. And we knew we needed to do that in order to improve the education, the preparation of both our general ed teacher candidates and our special ed teacher candidates. So the first thing we did was we started regular joint meetings, and we use these meetings to do the 3 C's, to coordinate things, to communicate better, and to start collaboration. And, you know, we started with tasks like troubleshooting some problems, some concerns that we were having, like the RECA passage rate was an issue for us. And so we wanted to figure out, you know, how to improve preparation and what to do to intervene with students who were not passing. We also were able to have some mini grants through our college to encourage collaboration and co-teaching between general ed and special ed faculty. And so we were able to offer courses like a reading class and a language development class, even some of our fieldwork supervision in which, fieldwork experiences in which we had a general ed and a special ed faculty member working together. They were co-listed. The classes were scheduled on the same nights. They had merged syllabi and things like that. We also used the teacher residence grant that we received to create 2 different pathways in which general ed teacher credential candidates and special ed teacher credential candidates would learn together. We had one which was at the secondary level, so we had a single subject math science candidate and the secondary focused special ed candidate in classes together and receiving a master's degree in STEM education. Again, courses that were co-taught and came from both the special ed and the general ed programs. And we're in the process of developing a dual credential program, very much like what you just heard at Cal State Long Beach, in which we will have a blended multiple subject special ed credential with that master's degree in STEM education. And the other thing that we're in the process of doing jointly with our special ed and our general ed faculty is developing an online professional development module, which would really build faculty knowledge and give them the resources that they could then integrate into their classes on multi-tiered systems of support, a universal design for learning, and differentiation. And now Layla is going to talk about some examples of how we use the HDL practices within the coursework of our program.
Hello, everyone. My name is Layla Ricci. I'm one of the mild to moderate disabilities faculty at Cal State LA. And I'm going to just talk a little bit to give you a sense of how we embed high leverage practices in our campus. So my roles currently, as Andrea was talking about the different pathways that we have. So within the mild to moderate disabilities program, I'm the internship coordinator. I do the student teaching placements for our mild to moderate disabilities candidates. And then as we launched our first year of our special education residency program, I'm the program coordinator of that. Anyone else wear multiple hats in one job description? Right, you guys can relate to that. So what that means for me is that I live, breathe, wake, dream, how to be more effective at teacher preparation and how to embed good practices, high leverage practices into the assignments we give our students, make the field work meaningful for them, and really make them into good teachers. And as Andrea was mentioning, our co-teaching project, just last night till 8 o'clock at night, I was doing a class, my reading class that I teach for our mild to moderate disabilities candidates, and with a colleague from general education who we usually, never the twain shall meet. In the past, our general ed and our special ed folks were just, had their own routes to preparation. So last night was the first night of our joint class. This is the second time we're co-teaching together. And I have to say, it is just so beautiful to get general ed and special educators in the same room together. Some of them are interns, some of them haven't been in the field yet. But to truly start that dialogue and that conversation about roles and frames of reference and really be focused on what are we doing together to collaborate to meet the mutual goal of the education of all of our children. So we wanted to just give you a few slides about our practices. We pulled out a few of the high leverage practices from the document that CEDAR has put together. So with social and behavioral high leverage practices, we picked these. There's several more, but really teaching social behaviors and conducting functional behavioral assessments. I think special educators would agree these are very important skills for us to have. This is hard for you to see as I'm realizing. So what we did was we, in both of these examples that we're going to give, this one and the next slide, we picked out an example of a field work class that we have and another coursework that we have, and an assignment that really shows how we embed these high leverage practices and allow students to gain experience with them. So the bottom one that you're able to read, well, it's EDSP 407. It's our Saturday Learning Center, where our students come in on Saturdays and have a chance to teach kids from the community. So it's our early field work. We have an assignment where they do behavioral screenings. They really look at what the children's strengths are, what their areas of need are, plan an intervention, and then critically evaluate and reflect on the student's skills and improvements. And in the one that's a little bit difficult for you to see, it's our behavior support class, where students really engage in a behavior change project and do a functional behavioral assessment and try to change the behavior. And that's really empowering for them to see that they can have that impact and really support children in having more positive behaviors. The next couple of examples, we pulled these assessment and instructional high leverage practices. We felt like assessment and instruction, they're so linked together, you can't do one with the other. So looking at these in terms of developing comprehensive learner profiles, using assessment continuously, systematic instruction that's explicit and scaffolded and intensive. So how we have our students practice those high leverage practices are in these two courses. The reading course up top, EDSP 557, is the course that I described for you last night that I was teaching. And in that one, the students really do an informal diagnostic, comprehensive assessment of a student's skills and really teach the student, do progress monitoring. We're still on a 10-week quarter system. So they do 4 weeks of progress monitoring. It's kind of difficult for them to fit it all in, but all the students understand the importance of that assignment because they're working with kids, they're practicing what they would be practicing as teachers. And then the other one is the progress monitoring project that we have in our final student teaching, which again involves them looking at students' present levels of performance, identifying an area of need and instruction, and then progress monitoring and looking at whether students made progress and how to change their instruction so that they can be more effective. So one last thing that I will say from my class last night. So high leverage practices, we know that we can give teachers content and knowledge, but practicing them and really applying them to teaching kids is very different. So last night I was showing my students a video, a very short, small group instruction video teaching phonemic awareness skills. They saw the video, everyone's nodding their head. Yes, I understand what it means to be explicit and systematic. I see the teacher's use of unison responding and effective signals. I get all that. And so at the end, we ended the video and we said, okay, now you're going to practice. And it was low stakes, just practicing with each other in class. And they kind of look at you like, oh, you want us to practice doing that. So it's all fine and good until somebody has to teach it, right? So again, that connection between what we're teaching in our courses and practices that our candidates will be using in the field. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Lynn Larson, and I'm an Associate Dean for Brandman University School of Education, and I'm really honored and excited to be here with you all and to have been working with this wonderful set of colleagues over the last couple years, getting the support from the CEDAR project to move forward the collaborative efforts that we've already started at Brandman University. Our focus was on building teacher preparation and administrator preparation programs at our institution and improving those. And so that's what our goals were for this project. So the 3 goals that we had for the project included developing a mission and vision for inclusion for the School of Education. So we felt like it was important as a School of Education to have an umbrella statement that guided everything that we did in terms of program development, curriculum development, and so on. So we felt like starting with this goal was very important in our process. Our next goal was to infuse our new administrative services credential with content about students with disabilities. And then our last goal was to develop a truly merged program for general and special education teacher preparation. So our first goal, again, was to develop this mission and vision for inclusion for Brandman School of Education. I was honored to lead a faculty team comprised of representation from all of the programs at Brandman University, including school psych, general ed, special ed, CTEL, our Master of Arts in Education, administrator preparation, our doctoral program, as well as our vice chancellor for Office of Accessible Education and Counseling Services, which is our disability services office. So this group met together over several months and to discuss, draft, and finalize this mission and vision statement. One of the first times that we met, we just brainstormed about what key items did we feel had to be included in this mission and vision statement, what key concepts and terms did we need to include. And this is a Wordle or a word map showing some of the brainstorming that we did during this. And I would show this at the beginning of each of our meetings just as kind of a refresher about where we had been and where we were going with developing this statement. We're very pleased to note that the word inclusion, universal and high for high expectations came out very prominently in this Wordle, and it really did guide our process as we were going through. So based on the work that this committee did, we were able to develop this mission and vision statement and present it to the Brandman School of Education faculty, and it was approved unanimously without any changes, which is quite amazing. No wordsmithing was done during the meeting. And so it was met with much enthusiasm, and again, this statement is going to be used to guide everything that we do as we develop programs. So just briefly, the statement we adopted was, through inclusive curriculum, the SOE will ensure that our graduates are prepared for meeting the needs of all learners for full participation in a diverse and integrated society. This would include, but is not limited to, meeting the needs of students with disabilities, gifted learners, second language learners, and students from other underrepresented populations. Brandman University School of Education is committed to creating an environment where all people feel supported, listened to, and able to reach their highest potential. In order to provide equity, access, and participation for all learners, students are provided supports and an inclusive curriculum that allows them to become an agent of change within their diverse local, state, national, and global communities. And so this was developed again by this committee. It's featured prominently in our catalog, and like I said, it guides everything that we are currently doing in program and curriculum development. So we're very proud of that. Our second goal, we had a wonderful opportunity. The timing was just perfect. All the stars were aligned. When the CDAR grant came along, the state adopted new administrator prep standards. And so our School of Education decided to start from scratch and write a brand new administrative services credential program. And this was an excellent opportunity for us to collaborate between special education faculty and administrative faculty to make sure that we were addressing the roles that administrators play in the lives of students with special needs. And so the administrative faculty met with the special education faculty on numerous occasions. They worked closely with our faculty member who is the course custodian for our special education law and IEP development course, and lifted materials and content, and they brainstormed together about what does an administrator need to know in terms of the IEP process and all of the 504 and IFSP and all the letters that we do in special education. But the role that an administrator plays in special education is significant. And so the administrative services folks realized this and wanted to meet with special ed to see what should be included. And so we're very happy now that they have, throughout their program, opportunities in their fieldwork, through case studies, to come to an understanding about what their role is in special education. So we're very excited that as they develop these principles of the future, they're now being better prepared to meet the needs of students with special needs at their school sites. Our last goal is a work in progress. And the administrative services rolled out their first cohort in the fall, and they're rolling out another cohort in the spring. But our last goal is a work in progress, which is to develop a merged general and special education credential program. Our goal here is to develop a truly merged program, not just a dual program, but a program where general and special educators are receiving general and special ed content throughout the program. So they're not separate methodology courses, but in reading preparation, how do we meet the needs of all learners in reading? In math preparation, how do we meet the needs of all learners in math? And so we're very excited to be able to start from scratch with this program and see how we can go about developing a program that's truly going to meet the needs of all learners. Our goal really is to assist pre-service teachers in developing the pedagogical knowledge we feel to meet all the students that were described in our mission and vision statement. We want to make sure that students with disabilities, our twice exceptional students, students with gifts and talents, high achieving students, second language learners, and those other underrepresented populations that that I mentioned in our mission and vision statement are truly having their needs met through our teacher preparation. So throughout this process, we've already met a couple of times as a joint special ed and general ed faculty. All of the faculty are coming to our Irvine campus in mid-March to have 3 days of intensive collaborative meetings to get this process going. We've already done a lot of brainstorming. And we've identified some key concepts that we're going to be incorporating throughout the program, including UDL, MTSS, and as we've been talking about in a lot of the other programs this morning, those high leverage practices in the domains of collaboration, assessment, social, emotional, behavioral, and instruction. So we have an opportunity here to build a program that assists teachers in being prepared to meet the needs of all the students that they're going to be serving in their classrooms. So we are going to be starting that work in mid-March, and we're excited to get started and hopefully have a new program rolling out soon. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. I get to be the first one to say that. My name is Colleen Torgerson. I work at Fresno State. My primary work is as a partnership coordinator. So a lot of, as has been said, we all have different sort of focuses. Ours is primarily around assessment, and also I'm going to talk a lot about working with the public schools in our region. To start with, though, at Fresno State, we have, since before 2000, had the dual credential. We've been already preparing elementary and SPED together. And so that, not perfected, but was not a focus. And we also fortunately had a meeting system where we have what's called the Multiple Subject Review Committee, meaning the Elementary Credential Review Committee. And those who sit on it are across all the areas. So we have EL representation, reading literacy representation, special education representation, as we make decisions, which helps us to move forward in a different way. So I just kind of wanted to share that as a given, because what we did was, as we said, everyone's different, but a little different. So we focused on two areas: performance assessment, and those of you who are in higher education know we have to give a teacher performance assessment, high stakes, Cal TPA, Ed TPA, PAC, but Fresno likes to be different, so we have the only locally developed and state-approved assessment. We give our own assessment, and given that, when the funds first came out, we have it for elementary and secondary, but not for special ed. So we had a concern that we wanted to be ready to write that up. And the committee was meeting statewide to do that. But as of today, they have not put out the TPEs. So that looked a little different. We didn't go forward as much on that. But what I wanted to share was that the CTC committee on that did come out with new, what we call teacher performance expectations. But they are now grounded in the 6 CSTPs, which they were aligned before, but now they're actually developed under those 6. And so we have, at Fresno State, took the opportunity to just get started talking about what are they, do we introduce, apply them, evaluate them, where are we at? If we don't, should we be, and what course and where? And what are sort of the key differences or professional development we need? So those of you who are higher ed people are probably familiar that they're doing the reliability study, but for some of you in school districts, and I worked as an administrator for 20 years, and I didn't know about looking those up. You might want to take a peek at them because they have a lot of really good new suggestions for that continuum to induction, especially for your induction people. A lot more on UDL. So that's just sort of a little ad for that. At Fresno, though, we have almost all of our teachers are prepared in partnership, so we're out in multiple districts. Our probably most high-profile one is Fresno Unified, our largest district, and we have a residency there. And we use many high-leverage practices related to both CEDAR and being inclusive, Deborah Ball, some of the Danielson model, but we do all the courses on site. So we're in the district teaching. We team teach with people identified by Fresno Unified to come in. So I teach a class on differentiated instruction and universal design, and I have a team member from Fresno Unified that meets with me. I'm primarily responsible, but they give me the Fresno Unified lens. We do joint selection of mentors or collaborating teachers or master teachers, and we do co-teaching training for all of our faculty on the Cook-Friend model. Meaning master teachers, student teachers, and faculty. Our faculty go out and model lessons, which I'm going to mention. When we're on the school sites teaching our classes, it's much easier for us to access a 6th grade class and go in and model a lesson, or a middle school science lab or something like that. And then probably one of the most critical changes has been joint selection in clinical field work. Our students never selected their sites, but often in the past, our supervisors selected the master teacher. It's now, for most our districts, especially our large ones, not done that way. It's done by our fieldwork office and myself as partnership coordinator with the district office of the district that then works with the principals to look at sites. And we're looking at schools that are improving, that have demographics that may be difficult, poverty, high EL, maybe multiple special ed classes on their site. And what are they doing? Do they have an improving trend profile? What's the leadership style of the principal? Are they implementing MTSS or at least talking about it or starting? Looking at characteristics like that to go into for our program, which is a real big change from before. When I talked about modeling lessons, this is actually one lesson. On the far left is our faculty member, Dr. Nyberg. This is her team teacher from Fresno Unified in the sciences. The gal on the top there is the brand new teacher. This is an engineering lesson. So they went in and did a science lesson at 6th grade related to engineering. All of our candidates in the room, 6th graders are in the room. But before they went in, they focused on what they wanted to work on. And so this, to me, is sort of that high leverage, focus, deep practice. And their lesson in this case was questioning. Fresno Unified uses Webb's degrees of knowledge. So we focused on what questioning techniques our candidates were using. And that's all students. So if there are students that are being served with mild disabilities, moderate disabilities, behavior issues, they're all included. And it's a start in this particular semester at actually looking at UDL models and constructing the representation and engagement practices for all students. So some of the things we specifically did is we planned and utilized different modules and things that are available to us from IRIS and CAST and CEDAR across our 3 phases to give recommendations. So we're not watching the same video because it's a good one, that kind of thing, or clip. We also have done some professional development on universal design, though that process is very different for planning lessons, and it really takes deep change, and we're still working on it. We've been redesigning our lesson plan, and that's not just a template. Like, it's really easy to draw some pictures on a paper, make it linear or make it visual and put it on paper. But what we've been working more on is what questions do our candidates need to ask at different times in different places to make sure they're implementing the representation, engagement, and expression. And that's been a big, how would I say this? That's a movement that we continue to need to work on, that we have faculty that are still struggling with it, but we would like to have these brand new teachers raised up as an expectation, not something new and different. MTSS is covered across the semesters. Typically, of course, Tier 1 is the early, because it's what the teacher does, the typical, the all kids, going into Tier 2 with some interventions, and then Tier 3 more in their final student teaching when they can see about collaborating with someone else to work with students. For a specific sort of difference because of the nature of our relationship in the residency, we have changed we had a differentiated instruction assignment. We now call it a universal design assignment. And we're actually having them tape themselves and load it up on Teaching Channel because the district has access to that, which would have been much harder for us had we been by ourselves at Fresno State trying to do the training. And then the trios, they're going to evaluate it. So we're trying to promote that collegial sharing, making a difference in their practices, and also training on UDL at the same time as a high leverage practice. I think that is that my last slide? One of the big changes also for us is that when these candidates are finishing, especially when they're in partnership programs, the districts are very strategically looking at the students and openings, and in our large districts, much easier than some of you in small districts, are placing them 2 or 3 in a campus if they have openings to leverage change. And so we're seeing some schools adopting a universal design at a much greater change rate because they put 2 of these residents in for the placement afterwards. So that's some of the work that we're doing. Thanks.
So that was a lot in a short amount of time. So we'd like you to ask us questions, maybe if you need to know a little more in depth about the different changes that we are implementing across our different programs. Don't be shy. Yes.
So I have several questions. First of all, how are you working with the County Office of Education in your various areas to implement MTSS on a broader scale, or are you just working with an individual district and school site?
For Cal State Long Beach, we are working with individual school districts. Yes, just currently it's been Little Lake City School District and Long Beach Unified.
Well, I actually had a meeting in Madera County Office of Ed yesterday. So I think that as it depends on what it relates to. When we're looking at possible schools and support, then we've attended superintendent meetings at the county office, talked around, and different superintendents step up and say, this is what I'd like. We've been in small school districts of 10,000. We've been in Fresno Unified, which is third largest in the state. And then related to professional development, and school districts, Fresno Unified happens to be a one district SELPA because they're so large, but the consortium SELPAs, if we're looking in the past on Common Core training, then we've done things together. And actually right now we were just talking about doing UDL training because it's kind of new and emerging and people haven't been doing it a lot. So that would be a couple ways.
Quick question. So what are some of the ways that you are preparing teachers or our future teachers for the next generation science standards and for really implementing the new state standards? Just because it's so vastly different from what has come before.
Well, I think for us, as we're looking at developing this merged program, it's an excellent opportunity to make sure that we're incorporating next generation science standards and the new content standards. So we have an opportunity to start from scratch, and especially with the new TPEs as well, kind of throw those all into the mix. And so it's a great time for us to be developing this program because we have an opportunity to be incorporating all of that new information without having to make it kind of fit into what we already have. We have an opportunity to start from scratch and really build the kind of program that addresses all those things.
We're sort of in this fortunate and unfortunate situation at Cal State LA where we're moving from the quarter system to the semester system. So it meant redesigning every one of our courses and every one of our programs, which was a lot of work. But in doing that, we were actually able to be very innovative and creative and say within the special ed credential, which we hope to eventually be part of a dual credential program, we created a STEM class where we're going to be integrating the new generation science standards for special ed teachers and hopefully for all teachers.
And then just a quick note on the residency program that I had mentioned. We had a single subject math and science residency pathway for about 5 years. So with our new grant, we're embedding special ed as one of the pathways. And so our special ed residents are going to be taking STEM methods courses with the single subject residents. And then both credential pathways are going to merge to getting a STEM MA. So we're hoping that that program also addresses some of the shortage in the field for secondary special educators who are knowledgeable in math and science. And then as we evolve, having that pathway then infuse our internship and traditional pathways.
Can I just add to that? As education specialists,
Often was the case that the special educator would assist the general educator in addressing standards. But a lot across these changes where we are collaborating with our single subject and multiple subjects, special educators are getting more content. And you all know that there's not a requirement that they take a science class. And so it's really all more important that we do collaborate with our multiple subjects because I have more experience in mathematics. And the way, what happened 2 years ago is the special education teacher wanted to know the best way to teach proportional reasoning. Not different ways, What's the one best way? Well, that doesn't work in special ed. They really have to know a lot of different ways, and it's the same in science. And that's been eye-opening. All the more reason why we have to collaborate.
In our dual program, we have a standalone science methods course that's taught by our science ed faculty who are very well versed with the next generation standards. We're actually working with them on UDL and more of the differentiation and such.
Yes. I've heard some mention, and I know MTSS also reaches the high achievers, the GATE students. Are you doing more to prepare teachers for who the GATE population is and how to service those needs as well, specifically?
I think that's an excellent question. And I think, I know we need to focus on that, strategically focus on it more than we are. I think we do address it some, but we need to make that a target for our program.
In special ed, it's not, part of the reason I think is that there are 13 categories.
You need a microphone.
Microphone.
Yes. Microphone. You need
There are the 13 categories under which services, so sometimes it's a fiscal thing, unfortunately, and gifted is not one of the categories. That's not a reason that we shouldn't focus on it.
We have kids going on in back of us right now, which is awesome to hear. And I think one of the areas we're going to focus on with our MERGE program is twice exceptional students as well. That's a severely underserved population as well. And so we hope to incorporate information about students with gifts and talents as well as students who are twice exceptional.
Question in the back there.
Yeah, I'm thinking about what happened with the CLAD certification some years ago, and I'm wondering now, hearing all of you, if you see this as sort of the emerging trend in the credentialing process overall in our state, is that now we are looking more towards that dual model.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is definitely part of the conversations that are happening in Sacramento. You know, they've just developed new TPEs, and they're thinking about how to restructure the credential system so that all teachers in preparation receive trunk training, which will be all the information one really needs to prepare for level 1 students, tier 1 students, some tier 2 students. And then there'll be the specialization branches in order to be better prepared to work with other populations of students. And sitting right next to you is William Hattrick, who could tell you a lot about this since he's from CTC.
And I think, the Common Trunk affords us an opportunity to look at what skills do general and special educators all need to know in order to meet the needs of students in their classroom. So, basic information about the IEP process and differentiation and UDL and things like that are all a part of that Common Trunk. So I think that's a great step forward, and it's guiding us as, we're working on program redevelopment or program development.
As you know, the CD has just come out with the MTSS grant, the $10 million to create a statewide framework. How do you see CEDAR and your programs kind of working within that framework that's going to be developed by 1 or 2 county offices of ed?
We'd love to be invited to work with a county office of education. Many of us are situated in counties that may not be applying for it, but we certainly feel like we have the knowledge and the skills to be collaborative. Where are you from?
I think most of us have agreements with districts in our local areas. I know we provide professional development at the induction level. I sit on a couple of different induction boards, and so we're working with the folks who are overseeing induction and school level principals to see what kind of professional development they feel like their teachers need in those various areas. So I know all of us are seeking out opportunities for that.
I think that's part of the clinical practice model as well. So when you're working at a school site, like some of us are, you're working on professional development with the mentors and the mentees at the same time. So that's one other.
So can I ask a clarifying question? Are you talking about not so much those that are going through induction, but let's say you're 10 or 15 years
That's really where the focus piece
Right.
really is kind of, what we're really looking at. Because those are the folks, that are having classrooms that have just changed substantially since when they first started teaching. And so now, what can we put in place in terms of partnerships with universities, with our county offices, in order to address those needs of those folks? Because I think that's where, out in the districts, we really see there needs to be a focus.
That's one of the things at San Francisco State with our induction model that we were looking at, hoping that inviting feedback from San Francisco Unified and kind of planting the seed that this would be a way to leverage the money that they spend on professional development and the expertise that we can give, and do it in a collegial way so people don't feel like the train already left the station, and so they don't. So they're practitioners that are in the field feel valued for what they've done, but part of a different conversation that they may not have been part of, or that it wasn't even conceived that you teach that way or that you develop yourself professionally that way prior to. And so that goes again with developing communities of practice. And someone was saying that you're placing teachers, and we would hope that what would happen is that teachers at one school would not only within that school district, because San Francisco Unified is so big, that they would have the opportunity to decide where they needed professional development, and to have, this is our dream, to have their administrators and their general ed teachers and their special ed teachers and eventually their paraprofessionals to leverage the people that are there, all be part of the same conversation and be able to bring to the table their particular expertise. And so that's kind of where we're hoping to go with it. And I think being able to offer it online is important because you can get together in classrooms. You can do it together if you want to do it in. We don't offer it on real time. We usually don't have our classes in real time online, but you can get together as a faculty and do it instead of a faculty meeting, or take pieces of it and use it, infuse it into whatever your institution, whatever your school is using for their current, faculty meetings. And so that's our dream, and we're hoping by having them sort of experience it, and then working with our own our administrative credential program at San Francisco State to see what happens with that. But yeah, so we're all part of the same conversation.
All right, so if we could thank our panelists, please, for their presentation.